Thank you everyone for joining us today. In the past year, we've launched 5 brand new unprecedented benefit programs, implemented several extensions, and made many changes to benefit programs as well. We've implemented pandemic unemployment assistance, pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, extended benefits and high extended benefits, 2 different types of federal pandemic unemployment compensation, and lost wages assistance. In addition, we provided disaster unemployment assistance twice, once for flooding early last year, and again for the wildfires that spread across the state last fall. We're glad to have been able to provide this critical safety net of services to well over 500,000 people in the past year. Now we're about to launch the last and 6th new federal pandemic-related benefit program, MEUC, the Mixed Earners Unemployment Compensation Program. We remain on track to start accepting applications for MEUC starting May 11th and to start making payments to people 3 weeks after those documents are submitted. Tomorrow, we're launching the pilot of the online application portal. We'll be contacting 200 claimants who we believe may be eligible for MEUC with instructions on how they can apply. MEUC is another brand new program with new requirements, and we want to get it right and make the application experience as smooth as possible, which is why we're doing this pilot. We'll have more information on MEUC, including specific instructions on how people should apply on our website soon. And our next webinar on Thursday, May 13th, will cover the MEUC program. As with all of our webinars, this will be an opportunity for people to learn more about the program and to get their questions answered by our subject matter experts. As we've mentioned in past briefings, recent federal law changes now require that people receiving pandemic unemployment assistance or PUA benefits submit proof of their prior employment or self-employment in order to be eligible for benefits. We're required by federal law to stop paying benefits if people do not submit the appropriate documentation by their deadline. We know what a hardship it is to have benefits stopped, so we've publicly shared information about the federal requirements and deadlines, including instructions on what claimants need to submit since getting the updated guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor in late January. To date, more than 21,000 people have submitted the correct proof of employment information. Unfortunately, about 15,000 people have not provided adequate information or have not responded at all. Our simple online interactive tool can help people figure out what documentation to submit. It's at our website at unemployment.oregon.gov. In the quick links section, people can click on the PUA self-employment/employment interactive tool. People seeking PUA benefits who have not yet met the proof of employment requirement can still submit documentation and have their benefits resume. We're reaching out to PUA claimants to make sure they understand what steps they need to take to continue receiving benefits. And if people receive a denial letter but believe that they have submitted acceptable information, they can file an appeal. That can be done at unemployment.oregon.gov and under the quick links section, clicking on the Appeals and Hearings link. In our continued commitment to improving our customer service, we're refining our tools to make sure people receive their benefits in a timely manner and hear back from us as quickly as possible. Last week, we announced the launch of our new and improved Contact Us form ticketing system. We continue responding to the inquiries submitted to our previous Contact Us form. Responses to inquiries will vary in the timeframes depending on the particular question or situation being addressed. Depending on the topic, some issues can be solved very quickly, while others are much more complex and will take more time. With our new system, before we can respond to new inquiries and answer questions about claims, we need to verify the identity of the person asking the question. Each time a person submits a new ticket or request using our new form, they will receive an email with instructions on how to verify their identity. This ID verification process is being done for their protection so we can safely and securely email people back. People can choose to respond by email or by logging into our Contact Us portal. If somebody does not respond to the identity verification email, the request or ticket will be closed. And a reminder that we will not ask for social security numbers as part of that ID verification process, and that people should never share their social security number over email or text. With the launch of the new Contact Us form also came another significant website change. Our frequently asked questions, which expands almost daily, has moved to the Contact Us portal to make it easier for people to navigate. To search through our robust FAQs, make sure to click on the Frequently Asked Questions link at the top of our website or in the quick links on the sidebar. And besides validating people's identity when they're contacting us through the Contact Us form, federal law also requires us to verify the identity of anybody receiving PUA benefits. We're verifying identities several different ways, including with our partner ID.me. If somebody receives an email or letter from ID.me, they must verify their identity. If they don't do so, then their benefits will stop, as federal law requires. And unfortunately, criminals continue to try to take advantage of people and steal their benefits. We take protecting people's benefits very seriously and have suggestions on steps people can take to protect their identity on our website. We want to remind people that we do not text claimants. We will send letters, we send emails, and we make telephone calls, but the Employment Department does not use a texting platform. Also, we never pay benefits through apps like WhatsApp or Venmo. People should not respond to text messages asking for personal information or asking to take steps to receive payments via text or another app. These messages are attempts to scam people, and they should be reported to the Employment Department right away at unemployment.oregon.gov/unemployment-insurance-fraud-ID-theft. And on an unrelated note, yesterday afternoon, the State Data Center for Oregon experienced a service interruption that impacted several agencies. Our contact center phone system and claim systems were impacted. So unfortunately, people experienced longer wait times than usual. As of this morning, things seem to be working normally again. And I'll share some numbers about the benefits that we've provided to Oregon over the past year. Since March of 2020, the Employment Department has paid $9 billion to 585,000 people, covering about 13.3 million weeks of benefits. Last week alone, we paid about $132 million to 114,000 people. And we're looking forward now to helping get people back to work and doing everything that we can to get our economy back on track. I want to thank our employees for their ongoing dedication and in getting the MEUC benefit program live. Although it's been more than a year since the pandemic, they're still working at a frenetic pace, and I appreciate their dedication to helping Oregonians very much. With that, I'm happy to try to answer questions that people may have.
Now we are opening the lines to members of the media to ask questions. We will call on you in the order you RSVP'd. And remember, if you are joining us by phone, be sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself. If you don't get your question answered, please email oed_communications@oregon.gov. And so the first question is Kate Davidson from OPB.
Hi. I saw an email from the Department of Labor today that it had issued guidance that it said allows states more flexibility when it comes to waiving some federal overpayments. Can you describe what that guidance allows you to do that the agency was not able to do before?
Unfortunately, I can't right now. I haven't had a chance to review it, and our experts are going through that. I haven't received an update from them yet, but we'll certainly be sharing if there is any increased flexibility. We have been being as flexible as federal law allowed us to be with waiving overpayment. So we're hoping that this does give us a little bit more flexibility.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to sort of cast you back to something from earlier in the pandemic and just ask you to refresh my memory about the steps that the agency took to make it easier for claimants who might have had an initial period of unemployment and filed for some weeks and then had a gap when they weren't filing, made it easier to begin filing again without restarting their claim. Can you describe sort of what the agency did to change that mechanism?
Sure. I think what you're referring to is that in normal times, whenever there's that gap in claiming, we do require a restart. And normally that would be someone from our office talking to the person and getting some information to determine whether there was something that caused that break in filing that might impact their ongoing eligibility, both because of the volume of claims and also because the circumstances were such that we know there were a lot of people that were starting and stopping work just as the pandemic situation changed and as businesses were opening and closing and shifting their approach to dealing with the pandemic, that we provided some automation that for most people made that kind of restart process in our system automatic. And that was something that allowed us to much more quickly get people back on benefits if they did again become unemployed. So I think that's probably what you're talking to. That was something that allowed us to significantly speed up getting benefits to people when they became unemployed again after their initial period of unemployment.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next is Peter Wong with Pamplin Media.
Good afternoon. My questions have to do with the status of the paid family leave program. I understand that the agency is going to ask the legislature to change some of the implementation dates. Could you give us some detail on that?
Sure, and I'll give a little bit of context, which is I think we've certainly been talking for the past year about the impact of the pandemic on our agency, the Employment Department. And the impact on our agency has been because of the impact the pandemic has had on so many people throughout Oregon. And that impact has shown the vital importance of getting the paid family medical leave insurance program instituted. Because that program wasn't there, there was a huge gap in being able to support people and their families who needed to keep themselves safe, to care for themselves or others who were sick. And it particularly impacted low-wage workers who are less likely to have that type of paid leave, and who are also the people that were disproportionately impacted during this recession. So the pandemic showed how vital of a program it is. And it also showed to us, and I think to everyone, how important it is that any program, particularly a new one, that when it goes live, that it's ready to support the people that need it and are relying on it. When the paid family medical leave insurance program was first enacted in the 2019 legislature, the dates that were chosen were not anticipating a pandemic, and they were pretty aggressive dates to begin with. Our agency has been focused incredibly hard on supporting people through the existing ongoing benefit programs and all the new federal ones that have come about over the past year. And that certainly has meant that we had to divert our attention and that we didn't make as much progress as we would have otherwise during the past year. People still have been working on the paid family medical leave insurance program very hard. And we looked at what it will take to get that program stood up in a way that when we roll it out, it's ready to support people, that it's communicating well with people, that people can get answers that they need quickly. And when we looked at that, despite the pandemic having impacted us for over a year and certainly still going, it looks like the date where we're confident that we can get those benefits started to people is September of 2023. So it's about 8 months from the original projection, which given the intervening pandemic, we think is pretty reasonable. And it's the earliest date that we feel comfortable that we can really roll that program out in a way to provide the essential support that it will provide to people.
Okay, a related question. I know you probably can't answer this with any certainty, but the president has proposed a national paid family leave program. Obviously, it has not passed Congress yet. So, but how would that dovetail with the program that Oregon is planning? And I know other states have similar programs running now or planning to run.
Sure. So
in the future.
We're looking at the details of that plan. And as you can imagine, any new system like this, there are a whole lot of details. When we look at the national proposed legislation compared to the program that Oregon passed, Oregon's program is a really robust one. And it was one that came about through a lot of compromise. And in most situations, it provides more support for both workers and small businesses than the national program. And fortunately, it looks like the proposed national program would allow what it refers to as legacy programs to continue to operate as long as they meet certain federal requirements. So it looks like it might require some minor adjustments to Oregon's program, but because the law is already on the books, it does look like it would likely fall into that legacy program category, where Oregon would be able to continue to implement that more robust safety net that would help people more and provide broader coverage and support than the national program. It would also then get some national funding to help pay for some of the costs of that state program. So we're watching it closely, and we'll certainly continue to do that and to be engaged. But so far, it looks like it could actually overall help Oregon's program in terms of easing some of the burden of paying for that on workers and businesses.
Okay, thanks.
Next up is Bill Poehler with the Statesman Journal.
Hey, David. So I want to ask you about some stuff that some of this happened before you were acting director, and some of it happened since you've been acting director. So I've been looking through some OSHA complaints, and there were some from back as early as March of last year about employees in the employment department not social distancing and working in close proximity and all this. And then the department had the outbreak, obviously had some outbreaks at some of your different offices in June. And then there were more, it looked like everything got under control. And then there were more complaints in September, and then another outbreak in December. And so I wonder, what actions did the department take on those kind of complaints from employees to try to do that? And especially considering we all, in April last year, May last year, we all knew that what needed to be done to do this. And I know that at the time the department was hiring vastly to try to keep up with demand. And so you guys were kind of constrained in what you could do as far as that goes.
Sure. It's a good question, Bill. And we've been very concerned about our employees' safety from the beginning. Unfortunately, we've seen the COVID-19 spread and kind of come in waves through through the state in general and across the nation. And that has to some extent been reflected by our employees, who are, of course, part of the state and are out there interacting with their families and communities. Early on, we made sure, for instance, when we were hiring large numbers of people and when we weren't initially able to have all employees telework because of the systems that they needed to use, the tools, we made sure that all of our workstations were set up to comply with the social distancing requirements. We followed all of the guidelines regarding having sanitizer, additional cleaning. We brought in air purifiers, changed the ventilation settings in our buildings. We've done a lot, and we certainly changed as the requirements have evolved. I think it was telling that when some of the OSHA requirements came out that had some stricter requirements for businesses, really the only thing that we were not already doing was having written down some of the plans. But in terms of the substantive protective measures, those were all already in place. We obtained extra barriers to put more physical spacing between people. Importantly, we were able, while doing the other work needed to get benefits out, to implement some new technology and process changes to allow a large number of people to telework. And we very quickly were able to get most of our employees to be teleworking. So really now the only people that are not teleworking are people who either can't do their job remotely because of the nature of the work or the particular tools, or for people that don't have consistent enough internet access at home to be able to work. But most of our employees are teleworking. We've been communicating with employees regularly about the requirements for face protection. We provided face masks for people that didn't have them. We have been constantly messaging the importance of not just themselves checking their health, not coming to work if they're not feeling well, but to follow all of the recommended preventative guidelines. I wish I could say that none of our employees contracted COVID-19. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but we look at it very seriously, and we continue to follow the guidelines and to look at any new guidance or changes to see what else we might be able to do to keep our employees as safe as possible when they're at work.
Right, and I've noticed that as I've driven, when I was driving by the department office in Salem earlier today, that there's less people. It seems like there's less cars in the parking lot, which to me says less people are working there. As far and more people are doing telework. Does I'm sort of thinking, does that change the physical distancing stuff that you're able to do? And if it does, by having these people telework, what were the challenges to having people telework early on in this? And why were those challenges there? And what did you have to do to be able to overcome that?
It certainly has changed the physical spacing. So for instance, in any building where we have people, most people are teleworking, which just means we're able to spread the people that can't work remotely to spread out more to keep more physical distance between them. So it has, even for people that can't telework for some reason, having most employees telework has helped us be able to keep more physical distance between people in the offices. And probably the biggest barriers early on were the technological ones. For instance, our phone system, people could not access the unemployment insurance contact center phone system without being in one of the few offices. And similarly, for accessing securely some of our mainframe or imaging systems that are used to administer programs and do all of the work needed to get people benefits, our IT team was able to work on that and come up with some new technology solutions that were rolled out, piloted, and then quickly expanded across the state to allow people to now access the phone system remotely and to access the other systems needed. So that there was a fair amount of work to go through to get that structured, to test it, to get the equipment and to configure it and get it deployed to everyone. But once they had tested that process and made sure that the tools worked, it really went pretty quickly of getting people able to telework.
All right, thanks, David.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next up is Mike Rogaway with the Oregonian.
Hey, David. I realize that it's maybe too soon to say, but I wondered if you'd seen a big uptick in claims this week with the new restrictions that went into effect and are about to go out of effect, and if that's complicated the processing of claims at all this week.
We really haven't seen it, but it would probably be a little early for us to see it. Sometimes that data lags by about a week. And particularly with us kind of tapering off from the large increase of new claims as a lot of people had their claims expiring, we haven't really been able to see that. We haven't noticed any real complications, though, kind of on the ground doing the work. The biggest challenge we've had, I mentioned the disruption that we had yesterday afternoon, that certainly impacted our ability to go as quickly as we'd like, but we're not seeing a significant impact on our ability to continue getting caught up as a result of the increased risk period that's been in place in some parts of the state.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so next up is Dick Hughes with the Hughesisms.
Thank you. David, I would just like to follow up on Bill Paler's question about working from home. You said stable internet. Does that mean that it has to be high-speed broadband internet? Does the department help pay for the internet? Does the department provide laptops for people to use or do people use their own computers? I'm just curious about what people pay for on their own and what the department provides.
Sure. We've been providing people the physical equipment that they need. That includes the computers, the screens, the other hardware that they need. In terms of the internet service, that's not something that the state is paying for people to have the internet service at home. It does require a certain level of bandwidth to be able to connect, for instance, and have a stable phone call, to be able to consistently access the systems. So for some people that live in rural areas or just don't have that internet access available, unfortunately, they're not able to do the work remotely. And those are the folks that we're focused on keeping safe in the office when they come in. But we've given people the laptops, the other equipment that they need to be able to do their work and to, for instance, have video conferences like this with their teammates and get training. The focus throughout all of this has really been on getting our workers safe at home with the tools that they need to be able to help everybody that's depending on them to get benefits.
Thank you.
So next question is Keaton Thomas with KATU.
David, always good to talk to you. So thanks for taking the time. I guess my first question for you is, we recently heard from the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association talking about trying to hire people right now. And one of the things that they said was their number one complaint is that there is a crisis of a workforce shortage that they have never seen before. So I know we've talked to you about this before, but to what extent are unemployment benefits contributing to difficulty in hiring? And what is your department doing to help those businesses, especially in the restaurant industry, hire people?
And I'll say it's not just the restaurant industry that is facing a really tight labor market. The unemployment benefits, we really haven't seen evidence that that is a significant factor. Some of the key things that we're seeing, there's still a lot of people that are concerned about exposure to COVID-19. So for some types of jobs, that is a big barrier to people wanting to go back to work, or at least in that environment, particularly if it's something where they think they're going to be at a higher risk of being exposed to COVID-19. There's also very real issues around having childcare, to where people may want to go back to work, but there's not sufficient childcare, so they're not able to. And in some ways, we're back to what the economic conditions were like prior to the pandemic, when it also was a really tight labor market and a large number of employers were having a hard time finding workers and were reporting a pretty high percentage of jobs as being difficult to fill. One of the things that has changed, besides the fear about exposure to COVID-19 and less childcare availability, is some employers, for instance, in the restaurant industry, a lot of people that used to do that type of work, there were some other industries that were not as heavily impacted that were recruiting and hiring a lot of people that used to do that type of work. So for instance, you might have had people that were in hospitality industry before that were able to find jobs doing delivery driving, which has been kind of a booming industry during the course of the pandemic. So some of the normal workforce that those businesses and industries would be tapping, it's more competitive because some of those workers are already doing other types of jobs, or at least have more options. So it is a challenge. In terms of what we're doing, that really is a big focus for us now. We're focused on helping the businesses look, they can work with us. We have people that are focused on the business services side of determining what types of workers, what skills they need, and then help to find those workers. And for the people that are depending on these benefits as a safety net, we're really focused on getting them back to work any way that they can. And that includes, we're encouraging them to register with our iMatch skills so that we can find jobs that they have the right experience and training to do. It includes, if they are having barriers to going back to work, like childcare or transportation or other issues, connecting them with other resources or helping them find types of work where those barriers might not prevent them from going back to work. So that is something that our agency focuses on. It's a big priority for us. And that will be, we're frankly having some of our employees are really shifting to looking at how we can help the people that do have some of those barriers find employment. And that's a core part of what's needed in Oregon for the economy to keep growing.
Thank you. Totally unrelated question. So sorry to be flipping and flopping around. But the other thing is, I recently talked to a woman, and I understand that you probably can't talk about her claim specifically, but she said that she has a claim from last summer. She said it was in July. She's owed, I think she said 6 weeks of benefits, and she's been going back and forth with the department trying to get those benefits. Are there still people out there who would have a claim from almost a year ago who are still waiting for benefits? And are you able to flag those to help get those benefits faster?
So we are flagging the people who have been waiting the longest, and we've developed some new tools to help us do that, even as new programs have been created and kind of overlaid. The biggest issue that we're seeing where there are people that have been waiting a long time are where people are either trying to backdate claims pretty significantly, or where people did receive benefits under one program and they maybe either need to have benefits under another program or might be able to get additional weeks of benefits, but it requires switching them to a different program. And unfortunately, doing that type of work is among the absolutely most complicated work to do without it causing unintended consequences, like some of the automated processes in our systems, flagging it as an overpayment or doing other things. So we're looking at those things daily, and we have the most expert teams focused on those. But we absolutely are looking at the people who have been waiting the longest, at kind of how far back the oldest week at issue is.